Welcome back to the shadows of Skyrim, where the darkest truths hide. Part 2 of our exploration into what really happens when you become a vampire continues. We have seen the diseased path and its horror. Now witness the chosen path and learn why it is so much worse. You thought disease was the worst way to become a vampire. You thought 3 days of transformation while your humanity slowly dies was the ultimate curse. But there is another way, a path chosen willingly by those who think they can handle true power. A ritual so horrifying that most who hear of it pray they never understand what it truly means. This is the confession of a Daughter of Coldharbour, a pure-blood vampire who traded everything for immortality and learned too late that some prices are too high to ever be worth paying. And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of dark storytelling, consider subscribing and liking the channel, but only if it truly resonates with you. They told you about the diseased ones, the thin bloods who stumble into caves and wake up 3 days later with blood on their hands. The accidents, the cursed, nobody told you about us, the chosen ones. I need to confess something before the sun rises, and I retreat to the depths of this castle. Something about what it means to willingly become a vampire, not through disease, not through accident, through choice, through sacrifice, through a ritual so ancient and horrifying that most who hear of it pray they never understand what it truly means. My name was Alara. I say was because the woman who bore that name died in Coldharbour, screaming. What came back is something else, something that wears her face and remembers her life, but is fundamentally changed at a level most mortals cannot comprehend. I was 23 years old when I chose to become a Daughter of Coldharbour. 23 years old and convinced I understood what power meant, what immortality cost, how wrong I was, how terribly, devastatingly wrong. Let me start at the beginning, because unlike the diseased vampires who lose themselves in 3 days, my transformation took only hours. Hours that felt like centuries. Hours that broke something inside me that can never be repaired. I grew up in solitude, daughter of a wealthy merchant family. We had everything: gold, influence, comfort. But my father had one problem that all the gold in Skyrim could not solve. He was dying, a wasting disease the healers could not name, something eating him from the inside. That is when they came to us. Members of a cult I will not name. They spoke in whispers about immortality, about power beyond death, about Lord Harkon and the Volkihar clan, about how our family could live forever if we were willing to pay the price. The price seemed simple at first. Gold, lots of it, service to the clan, loyalty to Lord Harkon. My father agreed immediately. He was desperate. Desperate men make terrible choices. They told us about the 2 paths to true vampirism. The diseased path, where sanguinary vampirus slowly corrupts you over 3 days, turning you into a weak, pathetic thing that even other vampires despise. And the pure path, the path of power, the path that requires offering yourself to Molag Bal directly. My father could not do it. To become a pure-blood vampire as a man, you must make a pact. Sacrifice 1,000 innocents in Molag Bal's name, and hope he deems you worthy. My father had the gold but not the stomach for that kind of slaughter. He could not become what he needed to become. But women have a different path, a more direct path. We can offer ourselves to Molag Bal on his summoning day, and if we survive, we emerge as Daughters of Coldharbour. Pure-blood vampires with power that diseased vampires can only dream of. The ability to become vampire lords. True immortality, not the half-life of thin bloods, but real, eternal existence. I volunteered. I was young, stupid, convinced that I understood what I was agreeing to. My father begged me not to. My mother wept. But I had made up my mind. I would save our family. I would become powerful. I would live forever. They took me to a hidden shrine deep in the Reach. 20 cultists gathered at midnight on the 20th of Evening Star, Molag Bal's summoning day. They placed me on a stone altar. They chanted in a language that made my ears bleed just hearing it, and they called him. When Molag Bal manifested, it was not like the stories. He did not appear as some great monster or towering demon. He came as a man, tall, handsome, perfect. That was worse somehow, the monster wearing a beautiful mask. What happened next, I will not describe in detail. I cannot. The mind has mechanisms to protect itself from memories too terrible to bear. But I will tell you this. When the cult's books say we are offered to Molag Bal, they mean it literally. When Sarana says the ritual was degrading, that is an understatement so vast it borders on obscene. He took everything from me on that altar. My innocence, my humanity, my choice. He violated me in ways physical and spiritual. He tore apart what I was and remade it into what he wanted. And when he was done, when I was broken and bleeding and dying, he placed a single drop of his blood on my forehead. I died, completely. My heart stopped, my breathing ceased. I felt my soul trying to leave my body, trying to escape to whatever afterlife awaited me. But Molag Bal's blood would not let me go. It dragged me back, forced me back into a body that was no longer fully mine. I woke up different. The cultists were kneeling around me, chanting praise to Molag Bal, congratulating me for surviving. Only 3 in 10 women survived the ritual. I should have felt lucky, special, chosen. Instead, I felt empty, hollow, like something essential had been scooped out of me and replaced with hunger. Not the hunger for blood that diseased vampires feel. Something deeper, something older, a hunger for power, for domination. For spreading Molag Bal's curse to others. They brought me to Castle Volkihar 3 days later. Lord Harkon himself greeted me. He was pleased. Another Daughter of Coldharbour for his court. Another source of the pure blood he needed for his prophecy. Another pawn in his game to blot out the sun. Harkon taught me to transform, to become a vampire lord. That first transformation was agony. My body tore itself apart and reformed into something monstrous. Wings erupted from my back, claws replaced my fingers, my face elongated into something bestial. I was no longer human. I was no longer even recognizably vampire. I was something else, something that existed to drain life and spread corruption. The power was intoxicating. As a vampire lord, I could drain the life from enemies with a thought. I could summon gargoyles to do my bidding. I could fly. I could rip through a dozen soldiers without breaking concentration. I was unstoppable. But here is what they do not tell you about being a Daughter of Coldharbour. Here is the secret that Harkon and his cult deliberately hide. You belong to Molag Bal now, completely, utterly, forever. Your soul is not your own anymore. When you die, you do not go to Sovngarde or the Dreamsleeve or wherever you believed you would go. You go to Coldharbour, to Molag Bal's realm, where he will torment you for eternity as payment for the power he gave you in life. Even now, centuries after my transformation, I can feel him watching, influencing, pushing every cruel thought I have, every victim I drain, every innocent I hurt. I wonder how much of it is me and how much is him. The line between my choices and his will has blurred so completely that I cannot tell where one ends and the other begins. The diseased vampires, the thin bloods, they think they have it bad. They think their guilt and hunger make them monsters, but they do not understand. They were infected by accident. Their curse can be cured at any shrine in the Nala. Skyrim, they have hope, a path back to humanity. We do not. We chose this. We offered ourselves willingly. We signed contracts written in our own violated flesh. There is no cure for being a Daughter of Coldharbour. There is no spell or ritual that can undo what Molag Bal did to us. We are his, forever. What do you think really happened here? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I need to know if anyone truly understands what it means to trade humanity for power. And here is the worst part, the part that keeps me awake during the long days hiding from the sun, the part that makes me question everything, I would do it again. The power is addictive in ways I cannot adequately describe. When you transform into a vampire lord, you become something beyond mortal comprehension. Your senses expand to encompass entire regions. You can hear heartbeats from miles away, smell fear in the sweat of prey, feel the pulse of life in everything around you, like a drumbeat calling you to feed. And feeding as a vampire lord is nothing like what diseased vampires experience. They sneak into homes and bite sleeping victims, stealing mouthfuls of blood like common thieves. We do not sneak, we do not hide. We descend from the sky like judgment itself and drain entire battlefields dry. I remember my first real hunt as a vampire lord. Harkon sent me to deal with a group of vampire hunters who had been getting too close to discovering Castle Volkihar. 20 men, armed, trained, vigilant. They never stood a chance. I landed in their camp at midnight. They panicked when they saw me. This creature, with bat wings and glowing eyes and claws like daggers. They fired arrows, swung swords, cast spells. Nothing touched me. I was too fast, too powerful, too far beyond human limitations to be threatened by their desperate flailing. I drained them one by one, not just their blood, their life itself. I could feel their essence flowing into me, their strength becoming my strength, their years adding to my centuries. When I finished, 20 corpses lay scattered around their camp, and I felt more alive than I had since my transformation. That is the difference between us and the thin bloods. They kill out of necessity, out of hunger they cannot control. We kill because we can, because we enjoy it, because Molag Bal built that enjoyment into the core of what we are. The diseased vampires spend their existence fighting their nature, hating themselves, wishing they could be human again. We have transcended that weakness. We have accepted what we are and embraced it fully. We are predators, the apex of Molag Bal's creation. Why should we feel guilty for being exactly what we were made to be? Harkon taught me this philosophy over decades of service. He showed me how the thin bloods were failures, mistakes, vampires who cling to their humanity like drowning men clutching driftwood. He explained that true power requires letting go of mortal weakness. Sentiment, compassion, love. These things only hold us back from achieving our full potential. I believed him. For a long time, I believed him completely. Castle Volkihar became my home. The other members of the court became my family. We were superior beings living among inferiors. We fed on the mortal population of Skyrim like farmers harvesting crops. They existed to sustain us. That was the natural order. That was how Molag Bal intended the world to work. But I am getting ahead of myself. You need to understand what being a daughter of Coldharbour actually means day to day. The reality beneath the power. First, there is the sunlight. Diseased vampires are weakened by the sun. Their health and stamina drain. They cannot regenerate. It is uncomfortable but survivable. For us, it is worse. Much worse. The sun does not just weaken us, it burns. Every ray of sunlight that touches our skin feels like liquid fire. We must stay hidden during the day or risk destruction. That is why Harkon became obsessed with the tyranny of the sun prophecy. If we could blot out the sun permanently, we could walk freely in the world, rule openly instead of hiding in the shadows. Vampires would become the dominant species on Nirn instead of parasites clinging to the edges of civilization. To fulfill the prophecy, Harkon needed Oriel's bow and the blood of a daughter of Coldharbour, specifically his own daughter, Serana, another pureblood like me, another woman who survived Molag Bal's ritual. I knew Serana before she was sealed away. We were friends in the way that immortal monsters can be friends. She understood what we had endured, what we had sacrificed, what we had become. We did not speak of it often. The ritual is not something Daughters of Coldharbour discuss even with each other. The memories are too raw, too painful, too shameful. When Valerica sealed Serana in Dim Hollow Crypt and fled to the Soul Cairn, Harkon went mad with rage. He searched for them for centuries. Every vampire in his court was ordered to find them. Failure meant exile, or worse. I spent decades following false leads and dead ends, searching for two vampires who clearly did not want to be found. During those decades, I met many diseased vampires, thin bloods who had been infected by accident or chose the disease over the ritual. I looked down on them at first. They were weak, inferior, barely vampires at all compared to what I had become. But I started noticing something. They still felt things: guilt, love, regret, hope, emotions that had been burned out of me during my time in Coldharbour. They hated what they were, but they still remembered being human. They still had connections to their former lives. I did not. I could not remember what love felt like. I could not remember caring about another person beyond their usefulness to me. When I thought about my parents, the ones I had supposedly sacrificed everything to save, I felt nothing. Not love, not anger, not even disappointment, just emptiness. That is what Molag Bal takes from you during the ritual. He does not just violate your body, he violates your soul. He removes your capacity for genuine connection and replaces it with hunger, ambition, the need to dominate and corrupt. You become a tool for spreading his influence across Nirn, a living curse that infects everything it touches. The thin bloods are cursed. We are corruption incarnate. I started to wonder if maybe they were not the inferior ones after all. Maybe being a diseased vampire was better than being a pure blood. Maybe having the option to be cured was worth more than all the power Molag Bal granted. Maybe I had made the wrong choice. If you have ever wondered what choice you would make in a situation like this, tell me in the comments. Would you choose power and damnation, or would you choose weakness and hope? These doubts grew over the centuries. I watched Harkon become more obsessed, more twisted, more consumed by his need to fulfill the prophecy. I watched my fellow court members scheme and backstab and murder each other over petty power plays. I watched the thin bloods we hunted beg for mercy and offer anything if we would just let them find a cure, and I realized something terrible, something that changed everything. Harkon was wrong. We were not superior. We were not the perfected version of vampirism. We were the enslaved version. Every pure-blood vampire is bound to Molag Bal's will, whether we admit it or not. We think we have free will. We think we make choices. But every decision we make serves his goals: spread corruption, harvest souls, perpetuate the curse. The diseased vampires have something we do not. They have the possibility of escape, of redemption, of choosing a different path. A wizard in Morthal named Phalion can cure them with a simple ritual. They can become werewolves and replace one curse with another that at least lets them die. As mortals, eventually, they have options. We have none. Once you become a Daughter of Coldharbour, you are damned. When you die, Molag Bal claims your soul for Coldharbour. There is no escape, no redemption, no second chance. You exist to serve him until you are destroyed, and then you suffer for eternity in his realm. The thin bloods we despise so much are freer than we will ever be. This is what I have learned over 4 centuries of existence. This is the truth that Harkon refuses to acknowledge. We are not vampiric nobility. We are Molag Bal's slaves, wearing crowns. We are prisoners who mistake our chains for jewelry. And here is the part that will make you understand why I said I would do it again despite everything. My father is still alive, still a vampire, still part of Harkon's court. I saved him. I achieved what I set out to do. He has lived for 4 centuries because I offered myself to Molag Bal, because I endured the ritual, because I became something monstrous so he could have immortality. He has never once thanked me, never acknowledged what I sacrificed, never even looked at me with anything resembling the love a father should have for his daughter. Because whatever capacity he had for love was burned away when I dragged him into vampirism with me, I saved his life and destroyed his soul. I gave him forever and took away everything that made forever worth having. That is the real horror of pure blood vampirism. Not the power, not the curse, not even the eternal damnation waiting in Coldharbour. The real horror is that you can achieve everything you want and lose everything that matters in the same moment. If this story has kept you listening this far, and you want more of these dark confessions from Skyrim, hit that subscribe button. It tells me someone out there is still paying attention to warnings like these. I need to tell you what happened when Serana finally returned to Castle Volkihar, when the Dragonborn brought her back after centuries of searching, when Harkon's prophecy finally seemed within reach. I was there when Harkon offered the Dragonborn a choice. Join us and become a vampire lord. Receive the gift directly from Harkon himself. Gain power beyond mortal imagining. I watched this stranger, this savior of Skyrim, stand before the most powerful vampire in the province and decide their fate. Part of me hoped they would refuse. Hoped someone would finally reject the poison we call power. Hoped this hero would see through Harkon's promises and recognize the cage he was offering. But whether they accepted or refused, what happened next changed everything. The Dragonborn helped Serana. They traveled to the Soul Cairn, that horrifying realm where trapped souls wander for eternity. They found Valerica. They recovered the Elder Scrolls. They obtained Oriel's bow, and then they came for Harkon. I was not in the cathedral when it happened. I was on the ramparts, keeping watch. But I felt it when Harkon died. Every vampire in Castle Volkihar felt it. Our lord, our leader, the progenitor of the Volkihar bloodline, gone, destroyed by his own daughter and the Dragonborn. The court fractured immediately. Some fled. Some tried to seize power for themselves. Some, like me, simply stood there wondering what to do now that the purpose we had served for centuries no longer existed. I went to the cathedral after, saw Harkon's ashes scattered across the floor, saw the look in Serana's eyes. She was free, truly free. Her father could no longer use her blood for his mad prophecy. She could choose her own path now, make her own decisions. I envied her in that moment, envied her freedom, even though she was still cursed, still a vampire, still bound to Molag Bal, the same way I was. But she had escaped one prison, even if she could never escape the other. That is when I understood the final truth about pure blood vampirism, the worst truth, the one that makes everything else pale in comparison. We are not individuals, we are extensions of Molag Bal's will. Everything we do, every choice we make, every action we take, ultimately serves his goals, whether we intend it to or not. Harkon thought he was pursuing his own ambition, thought he was working toward his own vision of vampiric supremacy, but he was just acting out a script Molag Bal wrote centuries ago. The tyranny of the sun prophecy was never meant to succeed. It was meant to create conflict, to draw out heroes, to test their resolve, to force choices that would corrupt or destroy them. Molag Bal did not care if the sun was blotted out. He cared about the suffering and domination that the attempt would cause. All of us were just pieces in a game we could not see. That includes me. This confession I am giving you right now, this warning, even this is part of Molag Bal's design, because now you know about the ritual, now you know about the power. Now some of you listening are thinking maybe it would be worth it. Maybe you are strong enough to handle it. Maybe you could use that power for good. You cannot. Nobody can. The ritual changes you at a fundamental level. It removes your ability to choose good over evil. You become a tool for spreading corruption, whether you want to or not. Your good intentions will twist into manipulation. Your desire to protect will become a need to dominate. Everything pure in you will be perverted into something monstrous. That is what Molag Bal does. That is his sphere, domination, enslavement. He does not just want your obedience. He wants your willing participation in your own corruption. He wants you to choose evil while thinking you are choosing power, to sacrifice others while thinking you are saving them. I did that to my father. I thought I was saving him. In reality, I was condemning him to an eternity as Molag Bal's puppet. Every victim he has drained in 4 centuries is my fault. Every atrocity he has committed traces back to my choice on that altar. I spread the corruption to him, and he spread it further, like ripples in a pond, like infection in a bloodstream. This is what diseased vampires do not understand when they envy purebloods. They see our power and think we have it better. They do not see the chains, the complete absence of free will, the knowledge that every moment of our existence serves a Daedric prince who views us as expendable tools. At least diseased vampires can fight their nature, can choose to only feed on criminals, can seek redemption or cure, can make moral choices even if their hunger makes it difficult. We cannot. The ritual strips that ability away. We can pretend we have morals. We can tell ourselves we are different, but ultimately, we will always serve Molag Bal's purposes because that is what we were made for. So when I said I would do it again, I meant it. Not because I think it was right, not because I am glad I made that choice, but because I have no choice anymore. If I could go back, I would make the same decision because Molag Bal has already written my past, my present, my future. Free will is an illusion we purebloods cling to because the alternative is too horrifying to accept. I am telling you this from Castle Volkihar, where I remain to this day. Serana left after Harkon's death. She travels with the Dawn Guard, now in some quests. She has found something resembling purpose, even within her curse. The rest of the court either died or scattered. The castle is mostly empty now, except for a few of us too old or too broken to leave. I stay because I have nowhere else to go. No purpose except to exist and feed and wait for the day something finally destroys me so I can begin my eternal punishment in Coldharbour. That is all pureblood vampires have to look forward to. Centuries of hollow existence followed by eternity of torture. Some of you might be thinking about the power still, thinking maybe you could use the vampire lord abilities to fight evil instead of spread it. Let me tell you about Valerica and Serana, 2 daughters of Coldharbour who tried to do exactly that. They tried to stop Harkon, tried to prevent the prophecy, tried to use their curse for good. They failed. Valerica had to flee to the Soul Cairn, a realm of eternal suffering for trapped souls, and hide there for centuries. Serana was sealed in a tomb for the same amount of time. When they finally stopped Harkon, it was only because the Dragonborn did most of the work. 2 pure-blood vampires with centuries of power and experience needed a mortal to defeat their own kind. That is how weak we really are when it matters. That is how completely Molag Bal's curse has crippled us. We have all the power in the world and none of the agency to use it meaningfully. If you meet someone offering to make you a pure-blood vampire, run. If a cult approaches your family with promises of immortality, refuse. If you hear about rituals that grant power beyond imagining, understand the price is everything that makes you human. Everything that makes existence worth experiencing. Everything. The diseased vampires have it bad. The thin bloods suffer guilt and hunger and isolation, but they are still closer to human than we will ever be again. Their curse is curable. Ours is eternal. Choose the disease over the ritual. Choose weakness with hope over strength with damnation. Choose anything except becoming what I am, a shell wearing a person's face, a puppet dancing on strings I cannot see, a corruption spreading itself, because that is all it knows how to do. My name was Alara. I was 23 years old when I became a Daughter of Coldharbour. That was 417 years ago. In all that time, I have not done a single good thing, not one. Every action I take serves Molag Bal's goals. Even this warning will lead some of you to seek out the power I describe, will lead some of you to think you can handle what I could not. You cannot. Nobody can. That is the point. That is the curse. The ritual does not give you power. It makes you a channel for Molag Bal's power. There is a difference. one that only becomes clear after centuries of existence have proven you were never in control. So, this is my confession, my warning, my testimony from inside a gilded cage. I am a daughter of Coldharbour, a pure-blood vampire, a vampire lord with power beyond mortal comprehension, and I would trade all of it for the chance to be a diseased, thin blood with the option to walk to a shrine and be cured. But I do not have that option. I will never have that option. I will exist like this until someone or something destroys me, and then I will suffer in Coldharbour for eternity. That is my reward for choosing power over humanity, for thinking I could handle what Molag Bal was offering, for believing I was strong enough to endure the ritual and remain myself. I was not strong enough. Nobody is. That is the secret they do not tell you. The ritual is designed to break you, not test you, not challenge you. Break you completely, fundamentally, forever. If you want to become a vampire in Skyrim, contract sanguinar vampiris. Become a thin blood. Join the diseased masses we purebloods despise. Because at least then you have hope. At least then you can be cured. At least then you retain enough humanity to feel regret for what you have become. We do not even have that. We have power and immortality and eternal damnation. We have everything except the one thing that matters: choice, real choice. The ability to be something other than what Molag Bal made us. Stay away from pure blood vampirism. Stay away from the Daughters of Coldharbour. Stay away from anyone offering to make you more than a diseased vampire. That path leads nowhere except Coldharbour. And Coldharbour is waiting, always waiting, for all of us who thought we were strong enough to handle the ritual. We were not. None of us were. And neither are you. This is my warning, my confession, my final act of rebellion against what I have become. Though even this rebellion serves Molag Bal's purposes in ways I probably do not understand. I am Alara, daughter of Coldharbour, vampire lord, puppet, warning, and I am watching you from Castle Volkihar, wondering which of you will ignore this testimony and seek the power I describe, wondering which of you will make the same mistake I made 4 centuries ago. Do not be that person, please, for your sake and everyone you will hurt afterward. Do not become what I am.